This video is going to talk through Indigenous peoples' rights in Canada. So Canada's history with the Indigenous peoples started with colonization, and the colonial system is at the root of the issue. To learn more about colonialism, let's take a read. Colonialism is the establishment of a colony in one territory by a political power from another territory. The initial incursion into the territory is followed by the maintenance, expansion, and exploitation of that colony. Colonialism is the practice of domination which involves subjugation by one group of people by another. In Canada, colonialism involved contact with, encroachment on, and eventual subjugation of Indigenous people by the early governments and settlers of France and Great Britain. The colonial system had immediate and long-term effects on people, not just in Canada, but all over the world as well. Places like Australia also feel the effects of colonialism today. It resulted in a clash of cultures between the colonizing power and those being colonized, sometimes with devastating effects. In the past, the Government of Canada tried to assimilate Indigenous peoples of Canada, thinking that they should live like European Canadians. Assimilate means to make like other Canadians. However, by establishing residential schools and reserves and preventing Indigenous peoples from voting, the Canadian government forced First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people to live under different rules than the rest of the population. This has had a devastating effect on their well-being. Indigenous peoples' rights in Canada. Many Canadians do not realize how severe the situation is for our Indigenous peoples. Over the years, health, education, income, and freedom in Canada consistently improved for most people, keeping the country near the top of the United Nations Human Development Index, or the HDI. However, the Indigenous peoples in Canada did not see the same improvements and were ranked much farther down on the index due to social, economic, cultural, and political inequalities. Here are just a few statistics that tell the story. 1 in 4 children in First Nations communities lives in poverty. First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children are 3 to 4 times likely to die due to their injuries. First Nations youth is more likely to end up in jail than to graduate from high school. While the overall crime rate has been dropping, incarceration rates of Indigenous people are on the rise. Suicide rates among First Nation youth are 5 to 7 times higher than other youth or young non-Indigenous people in Canada. Food safety and security is an issue for almost 50% of reserve residents, and almost half of First Nation households do not have an internet connection. Indigenous people take action. Indigenous people in Canada have been involved in a number of different civic issues over the approximately 150 years since Confederation. Meetings, initiatives, negotiations, and conflicts have taken a variety of forms, from treaties to constitutional disagreements to legal battles in the courts, and even to violent conflict. One significant movement in which First Nations across Canada took part was the Idle No More movement. It began in December of 2012 and eventually involved thousands of active citizens.